rather than try to do 5 things at the same time, because then you just basically stay mediocre at 5 things.
Good evening and welcome to the Late Night Business. My name is Ian Dennis, and tonight we have a very interesting show lined up because we're going to be having a conversation with an entrepreneur who's literally traversed different continents, set up different businesses, and actually succeeded on both particular businesses. And we're going to find out how his journey has been. But before I get to introduce my guest, I'd like to let you know that we're here at the Capital Club, the place that you need to be as an entrepreneur. A key thing as an entrepreneur is your network, right? And you always say your network is your net worth. And through the Capital Club, you can actually get to access so many different amenities and facilities all around the globe. While you're in Dubai, in New York, whatever it is, you can actually get to access it through the Capital Club. The guest I'm speaking about is Manish Sadana. I actually have tried to get that particular name right. He's the co-founder and CEO of Credal Africa, and also has previously served as an MD of Squad Digital, and also set up different particular startups and exited at some. And we're going to find out how his journey has been. Manish, thanks so much, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me in.
Nice to see you. The first question I like starting through all my conversations is, what exactly are you most grateful for today?
Grateful?
Yes.
For my family. I think being an entrepreneur can be an extremely tough journey. You go through periods of mental turmoil. There are periods you question yourself as to why you're doing this, the amount of sacrifices you have to make in your personal life. And if you don't get your family to stand right behind you in all those difficult times, it is almost impossible to be successful as an entrepreneur. So extremely grateful for my family to sort of back me, support me all throughout.
Interesting. And you also mentioned your family is now around with you for this.
Yeah, my parents are right now in Kenya. They come everywhere. This is the festive time in India. It's the festival of Diwali. So a lot of festivities around October, November. So we have them here every year so that we can celebrate all those festivals with them.
Interesting. And maybe just take me back, because I like just to recount your journey, how exactly it has been to where you are right now. You told me you grew up in India. How exactly was it growing up in India? How was your experience? Because the only experience I have with India is through the movie 3 Idiots. I was telling you earlier.
Yeah,
that's my only notion of India. I need to travel there. How was it growing in India?
Yeah, I think it's just a very tough place to be, right? I mean, I was just, we were just having this conversation before this interview that, my cousin, her daughter, secured 97.5% in her year 12 exams, and she posted it in the family group. And then there was utter silence in the group, and then someone just randomly posted saying, "Oh my God, what is your daughter going to do now?"
That's 97.5.
That's 97.5%.
In Kenya, when you get that, you're supposed to, it's an A, you'll be on the paper.
Yeah. And then there was like this glum conversations in the group, and like, "Oh, poor thing." And I didn't understand that because it was not as hard, in my days. Yeah. But the fact remains that for you to get into a university in India right now, like a good university, you are competing between the range of 99.6 and 99.8 percentage points.
99.6
and
99.6.
And in that range, you have millions of students competing for university seats at that. So in the mother's head and in the daughter's head, like they're done, they probably go to a tier 2 university, which is not something. And imagine the pressure on the child's mind.
It's crazy. It's 97.
I've worked so hard this entire year to get here, and I'm not getting anywhere with this. So yeah, so this is just an example to kind of show like how tough the environment is in India. I mean, you're talking about 1 billion plus people competing for university seats, competing for jobs. So it's kind of a place that really toughens you up. And we didn't realize this growing up, right? We didn't know that we were in a tough environment. It's only when you come here you realize, oh my God, that environment was really, really tough. So yeah.
I'm tempted to ask, what did you get? 99.9?
So no. So what has happened is that in our days, the gradings, our exams papers were subjective, not multiple choice. Now they have moved to multiple choice, so it's much easier to kind of get to 95, 96 plus. We had subjective long answers, in which you couldn't. So I secured 86.25%, which was. I was among the best, in
So 6 points out of 7?
86.25% out of 100,
Interesting.
And I got to the university I really wanted to get into, so I was lucky with that. but it was not easy. Let's just say it was not easy.
Interesting, because you guys always have to cram and know. You have to always prepare for.
And that's
exams.
also the problem, I think, with the education system, is that there is just tremendous amount of cramming and rote learning. I remember I was in a panel discussion recently in Kenya in one of our partner schools called Nairobi Academy, and then the moderator asked me, "So how do you think the education in high schools impacts people's future careers?" And I said, "Doesn't." Because the entire education system, most of the education systems are still based on rote learning.
Yeah.
I tell them like 90% plus of whatever I have studied in high school, I do not remember at all, because I was just memorizing and memorizing and memorizing. I studied a language called Sanskrit, which is the most ancient language in the world, and studied that language for 2 years. I can't speak a word of that language. So I think there's a fundamental problem with the education system, because it doesn't really prepare you for your future at all.
Interesting. And speaking about that, when you're going through that particular rigid system that you went through, that is in India, and such a competitive environment that India is, what did you have any aspirations of what you wanted to be, or you're just going through it just to compete to be the best and then figure it out?
No, absolutely, you're right. I mean, you just compete to be the best, and then you figure it out. I mean, I remember the time when I got my degree in my economics, and I was a fairly bright student, so I did well. I taught my university, and I went to my parents saying, you wanted me to get this degree, and I got this degree. Now what do I do? It's like, do your masters now. You do your masters. What do you do?
So
do your PhD?
After degree, you just
you
do
your
your
masters. Because you don't know what to do with a degree. You have a degree in your hand, and you just don't know what to do with it. So you just figure it out as you go along in life. And I think that's one of the big challenges that we see, is that the linkage between education and careers is extremely poor, not just in India, not just in Africa, but across the world. And this is one of the problems we're trying to solve for, is to kind of connect education with careers. And then rather than thinking about, so if you look at the education system, right, the way it has worked, let's talk about the KCSE system, right? In around Form 1, Form 2, you choose your subjects.
True.
Now, how do you choose your subjects? What is the basis? Like, what subject should I pursue? There's no idea. I mean, depends on your grades, depends upon, societal biases, parental biases, if you're in lines, and, in Mangu, I mean, the focus is very much on engineering and medicine. So you choose subjects randomly, right? Then those subjects decide what kind of courses you can apply to in universities. And then you get out of the university and you say, now I have a degree, I don't know what to do, and then you figure it out, right? What we are trying to change is, we are trying to invert the entire process. We have what we call a psychometric assessment in high schools, which is being currently done across hundreds plus schools in Kenya, and we have 20,000 plus students who registered for this assessment. So you do the assessment, it helps you understand who you are as a person. It helps you understand your personality, your career motivators, your aptitudes, and also your value system. And now we use that information to figure out the ideal career path for you. And then you work backwards to say, for me to get to that career path, what are the kind of subjects I need to choose today, and what kind of courses I need to apply for the university. And that's how we are thinking of, changing the entire paradigm of how education system, leads to career choices in the future. So we are starting these conversations around career choices much earlier in the school life than it has ever been in the past.
Interesting. And speaking about that, because I wanted to come to that later, but since you're here in terms of the space where what Credal is actually getting to do, how does, the psychometric test,
it's the assessment.
It's the assessment.
So when you say a test, then people think pass and fail. Yeah.
All right, so the assessment, how is it able to determine a career path of an individual? How is it able to show, if I do this particular assessment, how is it able now to exactly just help me know the career path I'm supposed to take? What does it look into?
So as I said earlier, there are 4 things that we look into. We look at your personality types. So there are certain personality types that are more suited to certain careers. Like, I am guessing that you will probably be a very bad accountant.
Actually, I studied accounting. That's
come on.
For real, I did Bachelor of Commerce and I did ACCA, but in between my undergrad, I realized I like talking. I can't do this.
Exactly.
I wanted to be like my father, just like you. And then I realized it's not my thing.
80% students eventually end up in careers which have nothing to do with what they've studied in high school.
True.
Nothing, or even in the universities. So you're not the only one. So I mean, coming back to the point is that there's certain personality types that are suited to certain kind of careers. Like your personality type will suit yourself in journalism, marketing, sales maybe, but you'll probably be really getting bored to death in the world of accounting, right?
Yeah, all of them.
So we look at personality types. and we have like the psychometric assessment is about 180 questions. It's completely online. It's multiple choice. It's very simple and fun to do. We also look at aptitudes because aptitudes play a very important role in figuring out what kind of careers are you best fit for. For certain careers, for example, you need a strong numerical aptitude. There's certain careers where you need a strong spatial. So spatial aptitude is your ability to visualize things in 3 dimensions. So if you don't have a strong spatial aptitude, you'll not do a very good job as an architect, for example. So we look at aptitudes. Then we look at your interest, your value system. And then we look at what kind of careers motivate you, excite you, or you're passionate about. So we look at multiple things and we ask series of questions that help us determine where you are across all of these 4 parameters. And then we use that. Now the system then eventually kind of uses intelligence to kind of say, if these are the kind of answers you're given, this is your personality type, these are the kind of your career motivators, and it uses that now to gives you recommendations on your ideal career paths.
Interesting. And does it also look in terms of gifts? Because primarily I believe when you're looking at it in terms of my personality and all this, but maybe I may be gifted singer, and primarily that can be a pathway I can actually look into it. Does it also look into that?
Typically talents do show up in career motivators. So if you are, let's say, gifted singer, then you will typically answer questions around, do you like performing on stage? Do you have a keen interest in music? So we have questions like this that assess, and typically talents get factored into questions like those.
Interesting. And what exactly informed you setting up Credal? Is it because you came up from an environment whereby you're always being pumped up to succeed in education, and then you saw what exactly informed Credal?
Yeah, so I think just kind of going back a few years, I talked about my studies in education. I studied economics because I came from a family of economists. My sister went to the US to do her PhD in economics. I came from like a family of uncles who are all economists. So growing up in your home, your dinner conversations, your dinner table conversations, well, just economics. I also had a class teacher who was also an economics teacher, who I also was really fond of.
So economics was a family thing.
It was a family thing. Plus, I had a teacher who was very fond of me. I was very fond of her. She, gave me a very good impression, and I thought I wanted to be in economics. Sometimes you think you want to do something, and then you very later on realize that it was not a good choice. So,
true.
So I think like when it comes to higher education, there's a lot of parental bias and there's a lot of societal bias that informs. And economics is a very respected course. And so I did my economics, and then as I told you earlier, then I went to my parents saying, "What do I do with my degree?" That's go do your postgraduate. So I think that was also the time when it was the year 2000. So year 2000, if you remember, was also a time that internet boom was happening.
Yes, the .com.
The .com boom was happening across the world. Amazon was becoming bigger. A guy called Sabir Bhatia sold Hotmail, to Microsoft for $400 million. And I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur. And I think even when I was growing up, I had deep passion for entrepreneurship. So every single summer break in school, I would pick up a new business and I would run a business and I would try and make some money. I come from a humble family, really humble family. So I was always excited about, making money, just hustling my way through in life.
Yeah.
And then I was like, then I dropped out of my college. I was very clear I want to be an entrepreneur. And then eventually I found my way into a tech startup ecosystem, and I eventually, got success. Success not just in terms of, financial success or succeeding as a businessman or as an entrepreneur, but also, success from within, because I was feeling really happy. I would look forward every day to go to work, and we were transforming the world and we were excited about it. So fast forward a few years, I have a daughter, she's 7 years old. I did not learn coding, but even though I'm in a tech startup field, I don't know how to code. And sometimes they say that fathers like to live their unfulfilled dreams to their kids.
I've heard that so many times, yes.
So I put my daughter into the coding program, and I said, if you need to have a good future, you need to learn coding. Okay, so a 7-year-old, I put her in a very tough coding program.
In India, you start everything so early.
So early. There's no time to waste. There's no time to waste.
There's a billion people competing with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So she went through the program. In India, you just have to obey your parents. Whatever they told you, have to do it.
Yeah.
So a few months down the line, I check in with her and she's like, "Look, I'm doing it because you asked me to do it, Papa. But I don't want to do this." I said, "What do you want to do?" And she opened a drawer from her cupboard, and then she took out some dolls, and she said, "Look, I stitched clothes for these dolls." And she made amazing clothes for these dolls. So she has an amazing sense of fashion.
At 7.
She says, "I want to be a fashion designer. That's what I want to do." And that was like this moment that I think everything kind of clicked for me. And I thought to myself that I am doing to my child what was done to me when I was growing up.
True.
Yeah, parental biases, societal bias. In my mind, fashion design is a hobby. It's not a career. And this is me, extremely educated, well-traveled across the world.
Yes.
And this is my own daughter. I don't know her.
Yeah.
So when we kind of like when I left my job at when I resigned from my position from Scan Group and Squad Digital, I was thinking about what to do. So I think like this was a very big inflection moment in my life, and I said, okay, how do people make choices? Even like I didn't know how to make choice. I don't even know how to tell my own child how to help her make the best choices for her.
Yeah.
And when we looked around, we saw this, right? We saw that 40% students, just like me, are dropping out of universities in the first year. 80% students are ending up in careers which have nothing to do with what they've studied. It's like this has got to change. And look at from an Africa perspective, every year $30 billion is spent on higher education. And think of that, 80% of that, which is $24 billion, is spent in education, which will have eventually no bearing on your future career.
True.
That's a complete waste of money. And parents really spend that money for university education. It's not easy, it's expensive. So it says something needs to change. So that's when kind of the initial genesis of the Credal idea came into play.
Interesting. And how did you go about now setting it up and making it more from just being an idea out of your experience with your daughter to now making it, what's it called, a business?
Yeah, so I think like the good news was that I was close to education in the past. Like I had worked in an education technology startup in India. I'm also the youngest published author of an economics textbook in India. So I've been close to education, I've been close to students in my past. So I think it was clear to me that education, and transformation in education space, I think was something which was very, very close to my heart. And I had a sufficient technology background. I had built a successful career in Kenya and in Sub-Saharan Africa. So first step was the hardest step, which is to resign from your job. Now you have a job where you're MD of the largest digital marketing agency in Sub-Saharan Africa. You're part of the largest global advertising group in the world. And you have a really, really comfortable job. You have a really plush job, the salary is fat, everything is fine, you have a great lifestyle. Now to give all of them up when you have a wife and you have 2 kids is not the easiest thing.
And the parents behind your back.
And the parents behind
you
your
did
back.
not do economics.
So it was I think one of the hardest moments in my life, and I think I was not being able to be decisive because also this was not India, right? It was still another country, even though I spent a lot of time. I've never set up a business here. I'd worked in a comfortable environment. So I actually found a coach, and that coach kind of like helped me through this process over the 3 to 4 months period for me to actually decide that I want to quit. And then I resigned, and my resignation was not easy, of course. My notice period was 6 months, but eventually I got to leave. So one of the people I co-founded Credal was a guy called John Guru. So John Guru is currently my co-founder and our CTO, the Chief Technology Officer. So John and I had built wonderful products, back in the days in Squad Digital. So he was the first person I asked. So I said, John, I'm leaving. Are you with me? He said yes.
Wow.
It was an instant yes.
So John had not planned to resign, you made him resign.
Huh?
John had not planned to resign, you made him resign.
I think like John and me kind of became very close to each other in our time in Squad. It was like one of the guys I was closest to, like great chemistry. We had the same view of the world. And it was also always clear to us that, after Squad, whatever we're going to do, we're going to do together. So it was a no-brainer for him. It's a no-brainer for him, for me as well. So anyway, so we left. I left first and then he left later. Initially it was just a plan on a piece of paper. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. It was a new business environment for me, and I've never done education tech in Africa. I didn't understand the market here. So just a series of steps, and I think very interesting thing happened that one of the guys, Shane Premji, who's also one of my co-founders and our CFO, he moved into my apartment building during the COVID time. And also, to make matters worse.
It was during COVID.
Yeah.
So you resigned during COVID?
Yeah, when people were trying to kind of hold on to their jobs.
Yeah, so you resigned during COVID because you had a plan on paper.
The economy was down, with a plan on paper. Yeah, just a plan on paper, just one sheet of paper. And everything was on a sketch with a pen. And then he moved into my apartment building and during COVID times. And then we started talking. He had background in investing world, So he was an investment banker, then he was working for IFC, which is part of World Bank, and then he was, in private equity finance. So he had a lot of background from a finance and investments perspective. So I was just kind of like telling him my idea, and I'm saying that, what should I do? What should I do?
Yeah.
How should I raise the funding?
Yeah.
And then he got really excited about Credal. It's like, I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to join you. And that was exciting, right? Because
so
because
became
he had a,
so now you became the
became
three idiots.
Yeah,
I just wanted to break that. So the three idiots together.
Yes, became the three idiots. Yeah. I think you're right. Actually, in those moments, all of us, really high-paying, comfortable jobs, to leave those jobs in the middle of the COVID.
Yeah.
You could easily classify us as the
three idiots. Interesting.
So yeah, so Shane joined me, and that when you have kind of like partners around you, and I'm blessed to have extremely high integrity, extremely intelligent, extremely hardworking co-founders, and then I think it just gave me a greater sense of confidence and purpose as well. So yeah, so I basically took off all my life savings and put it behind this business. We hired a team of, we started in the Limac building on Wayaki Way with 2 desks, just John and myself, and then we got to 5 desks, and today we are about 100 people across 5 offices. And then I think one thing led to another, and then you learn and you learn.